The top stories tonight in Y News. The Department of Health will reorganize the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF, members to only include those with relevant functions. Experts say the COVID-19 case rate in Metro Manila could have peaked. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is considering agreements with foreign governments for the supply of fertilizer. And a week from President Marcos's first State of the Nation address, some lawmakers expect clear and specific outlines on how the president plans to address the challenges the country is facing today. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, July 19, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. First in the news, Malacanang has announced that the member agencies of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases would be reconstituted by the Department of Health. Meanwhile, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. has ordered the temporary retention of the current COVID-19 alert level system. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why live. Yes, Nel, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Will. Only organizations with relevant and deliberate functions will be allowed to join the IATF. This is Malacanang's statement regarding the meeting of health officials with President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Pending the reconstitution, the OH officer in charge, Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, said they will streamline IATF meetings and processes with clear directives for safe reopening. Vergere added that they will also use the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council as a platform, replacing the National Task Force Against COVID-19, or NTF. Meanwhile, according to Malacanang, President Marcos decided to keep using the COVID-19 alert level system for the time being. However, PBBM is requesting the reclassification of restrictions in order to make them more compatible with the COVID-19's current milder strains. The president also said the alert level could be adjusted or improved if more people receive COVID-19 vaccine booster shots. And that is our update. Back to you, Will.
Yes, thank you. Nel Maribuhok reporting live. Meanwhile, the positivity rate and the number of cases in Metro Manila may have already peaked, according to OCTA Research Group. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
Based on the monitoring of OCTA Research Group, Metro Manila recorded a positivity rate of 14% on July 15. It went down to 12% on July 17. According to Professor Guido David of OCTA Research Group, this may indicate the beginning of a downtrend of cases in the National Capital Region.
Sa Metro Manila, may possibility na baka nag-peak na. Ang ibig sabihin ito, kung magtuloy-tuloy ito, baka pababa na yung trend natin sa Metro Manila.
Professor David also hopes that the surge of Omicron BA.5 subvariant in Metro Manila will also end. He clarified, however, that their projection is specific in Metro Manila since there are still rising cases monitored in other parts of the country. Based on OCTA's monitoring, there is high positivity rate in Calabarzon, Central Luzon, and Western Visayas region. Despite the high positivity rate in other provinces, Professor David said this should not be a cause for alarm since healthcare utilization rate and the number of patients with critical or severe COVID-19 cases remain low.
Kahit na medyo mataas yung, kunyari, yung cases or mukhang mataas yung risk, ay ang binabantayan natin yung healthcare utilization. At sa ngayon, nananatiling mababa yung healthcare utilization. Hindi naman ito alarming. We just want the public to be aware na may konting pagtaas dito sa mga areas na to. So, kailangan talagang pag-iingat natin.
Meanwhile, based on the observation of the Private Hospital Association of the Philippines Incorporated or PHAPI, most patients hit with severe COVID-19 cases are the elderly, immunocompromised, or those with incomplete or no vaccine against the virus. Because of this, doctors remind the public to complete their COVID-19 vaccines, including booster shot. Several private hospitals also support requiring booster shots in indoor establishments.
Mas may tataas po natin ang immunity ng ating mga kababayan pagka po nabigyan yan. A-avoid po natin ang paghalo-halo, halubilo ng mga tao na hindi po vaccinated sa mga vaccinated para po mas feel safer po ang ating mga vaccinated na mga tao kung pumapasok sila sa mga malls at sa mga kataong lugar.
Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Department of Health, or DOH, has been preparing to ramp up COVID-19 booster vaccination for the first 100 days of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. PBBM instructed the DOH to make COVID-19 boosters more accessible to the public. To reach this target, DOH OIC USEC Maria Rosario Vergara said the health agency and other implementing units will have to vaccinate around 397,000 people a day in the next 80 days. USEC Vergara said they have examined each vaccination site's capacity and are certain that it is possible to meet the established target. According to the DOH report, just 15 million of the 55 million fully immunized Filipinos had received booster doses. The DOH stated that PBBM is very focused on booster dosing and values evidence to increase Filipinos' level of immunity. Around 1.5 million COVID-19 vaccines will expire at the end of July. This is composed of 887,360 Moderna and 628,680 AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines. The expiring vaccines were acquired by the private sector through the tripartite agreement, A Dose of Hope. AstraZeneca jab cost is estimated to be at least $5 each, while Moderna shots were purchased for around $27 for each dose. This is why Go Negocio founder Joey Concepcion and other members of the private sector are again appealing to the Health Technology Assessment Council, or HTAC, to permit the private sector to allow second boosters. Concepcion says that the goal of this initiative is to achieve President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s goal of administering at least 23 million booster shots within his first 100 days in office. And a month prior to the reopening of classes in August, the costs of some school supplies in Divisoria Public Market increased. Janice Inhente will tell us why.
Parents are now facing increased school supply prices in Divisoria Public Market in Manila. With only a month before the opening of classes, the price of a dozen pencils increased to 75 pesos from 65 pesos. 40 pesos was increased in the price of a box of ballpen from the previous price of 100 pesos, while the price per ream of pad paper is now at 120 pesos. The price of a bundle or 10 pieces of notebook has also upped by 20 pesos. It now costs 120 pesos.
Nagmahal ang mga notebook eh. Mga 30% siguro din na kasi nagmahal ang papel, nagmahal din mga lapis, ballpen.
Parang nadoble yung taas ng presyo ng ngayon ng mga school supplies unlike before, kaya kailangan talaga na paglaanan ng budget. Kaya inagahan na rin po naming mamili para kahit papano yung presyo can afford pa, kasi ang wino-worry ko baka pagdating na ng August, pag nandyan na, tataas at tataas yan.
Aside from school supplies, some retailers are also forced to increase their prices for pants from 200 to 230 pesos. It has now increased by 10 to 20 pesos depending on its size. While polo and blouse, which can be purchased at 130 to 250 pesos per piece before, now costs 150 to 280 pesos.
Nagtaas po yung gasolina, yung sinulid at saka yung mga tela. Kaya po, nagtaas din po kami ng
Despite the increasing prices for school supplies and uniforms, retailers hope that returning face-to-face classes will give them a chance to recover from their loss. Janice Hente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board acknowledges being overwhelmed with the FREERIDE program. The agency explains that as a result, payments to bus operators for services rendered are delayed. Asher Kadapan Jr. explains why.
The FREERIDE program in public utility vehicles was implemented by the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board in corresponding routes across the country. With its simultaneous implementation involving 64,000 PUVs in more than 4,300 routes nationwide, LTFRB offices in different areas were overwhelmed with the required processes.
Ang dami kasi nating in-implement na libreng sakay program, nationwide po siya. So talagang na-overwhelm din yung mga empleyado dito. So ang ginawa natin means yung libreng sakay sa ibang areas ay tapos naman na. So yung ibang personnel na galing sa ibang region, dinala natin dito sa main office para tutukan yung payout system.
LTFRB Chairperson Cheloy Garafil says the FREERIDE program is now running on its 15th week of implementation. The agency is now processing payments for the 10th week of services rendered by the bus operators. In just the last 2 weeks, over 300 million pesos were already paid out under the new leadership, covering 4 weeks of services under the program. Chairperson Garafil explains the amount should at least be sufficient to cover the operational cost and allow operators to fully deploy their buses, especially during rush hour.
We're confident and we're relying on the word naman ng ating mga konsorsya na nag-operate sa busway na they will keep their word na i-maximize ang kanilang deployment na 440 vehicles, especially during rush hour.
The LTFRB added that the agency has enough fund for the implementation of the FREERIDE program in EDSA until September 6. The Transportation Department is already tapping the Department of Budget and Management for additional fund to continue the program until the end of the year. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Due to persistent hot temperatures, power demand from homes and businesses in the U.S. Central region hit record high. Thus, residents are urged to conserve water. Beverly Saison will tell us why.
Home and businesses in the U.S. Central region continue to crank their air conditioners up to get relief from the heat wave. This resulted in the power demand in the Southwest Power Pool to hit a record high on Friday and is expected to break in the coming days. The Electric Reliability Council urged customers to conserve energy usage. This is to prevent further measures to reduce energy such as outage rotation. Meanwhile, the North Texas Municipal Water District are asking customers to immediately reduce their water supply. Most of Texas is experiencing drought conditions, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. Temperatures in the Dallas and Fort Worth areas are expected to reach 100 degrees through Wednesday. Beverly Saison, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
An additional $940 million have been approved by the U.S. Treasury Department for 9 U.S. states through the Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI. This means a total of $1.5 billion is now allocated to invest in small businesses under the COVID-19 Recovery Venture Capital Program and help underserved communities have access to capital and promote entrepreneurship. This aims to support small businesses in the states of Arizona, Connecticut, Indiana, Maine, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, and Vermont. The SSBCI allocation provides funding to small businesses through venture capital programs, loan participation programs, collateral support programs, and capital access programs. According to a White House report in June, it is found that more Americans are starting new businesses than ever before, and these small businesses are creating more jobs for its citizens. This is a key part in President Joe Biden administration's strategy by providing entrepreneurs the resources they need to succeed. We'll share more global stories with you later, but for now, back to you, William.
The Philippine National Police, or PNP, will deploy more security forces to secure President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s first State of the Nation address next week. Leah Ilagan reports why.
In relation to President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s State of the Nation address on July 25, the Philippine National Police did not receive any serious threats. However, according to PNP OIC Police Lieutenant General Vicente Dano Jr., they would deploy 22,000 security forces to secure the event.
Well, unang-una, I just would like to stress out na ang presence po ng ating PNP sa area is to safeguard not only the SONA but to safeguard the whole community, pati sila, no? Na nandun sa area. Kasi there might be some group or some scrupulous person who would like to take advantage of the situation, no? And yun po hindi nating papayagan na mangyari.
According to Danao, protesters are only permitted in the Freedom Parks. The water cannon of the Bureau of Fire Protection and the mobile jail of the BJMP are ready in Commonwealth area if there are any eventualities.
However, if there will be a situation wherein hindi natin medyo maiwasan, I still will exercise maximum tolerance sa area, no? And sabi ko nga, sana lang hindi tayo umabot sa punto ng karahasan na sinasabi nila. Pero as far as the PNP is concerned, wala po tayong any intention of hurting anyone.
To guard the border into Quezon City, Task Force Manila Shield will also be reactivated.
So there will be border points, control points, no? Just like what we usually do, especially from those who will be coming from the different regions. So expect that there will be checkpoints from time to time. It will be on a random basis, depende po kung ano po yung threat assessment on that day.
Danao took a walk through this afternoon on the extension of Commonwealth Avenue up to Batasan Complex. He even checked over the vehicle and other equipment that will be used by PNP personnel. The PNP OIC reaffirmed that they are prepared for event on Monday. Leah Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
With less than a week away from the very first State of the Nation address of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., some lawmakers expect clear and specific outlines on how the president plans to address the challenges the country is facing today. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
Several senators hope that President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. will lay down concrete plans on how to address major issues in various sectors in his first State of the Nation address on July 25. Senator Nancy Binay wants to hear the president's plan to mitigate higher prices of commodities.
Ano ba yung nakikita niya plano kung paano tayo makakaahon dahil sa epekto ng pandemic, dahil sa epekto ng pagtaas ng presyo ng gasolina. Ano yung magiging roadmap for the next 6 years? I think yung dapat mailatag na during his first SONA.
Senator Risa Hontiveros says she will wait for Marcos's promises during his inaugural address on the real state of the country. The senator also hopes to hear the president's comprehensive plans on livelihood, agriculture, climate change, infrastructure, tourism, and safe resumption of face-to-face classes.
Kahit parang gusto nilang i-evoke ulit yung imahe ng strongman na gagawin ang lahat para sa atin, na hindi na natin kailangang makialam. Ako naniniwala pa rin na anuman ang administrasyon at lalo na ang dami pa rin nating hinaharap na hamon, ang dami pa nating gustong makamit na mga pangarap para sa ating sambayanan, importanteng manatili yung partisipasyon ng mamamayan.
Meanwhile, Senator Joel Villanueva says he is interested to hear the chief executive's plan for Filipino workers, including job generation, advancing workers' welfare, education and training, and salaries. The lawmaker also hopes to hear Marcos's plan on international affairs, which he says an important message for overseas Filipino workers, especially with the start of operations of the newly created Departments of Migrant Workers. For his part, neophyte Senator Robin Padilla says he is excited as this is his first time to witness the address as a legislator. Padilla says he wants to hear the plans of the president on addressing problems in agriculture and energy sectors. The first-time senator is also expecting Marcos's thoughts on the illegal drug war and the Build infrastructure program.
Excited ako doon sa sasabihin ni Bongbong, ni PBBM. Kasi nung nangangampanya kami, lagi niyang sinasabi, itutuloy niya yung magagandang programa ni Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Noon, ang sabi ni Pangulong Duterte, okay na siya sa nuclear power plant. Isipin niyo, panahon pa ng matandang Ferdinand Marcos, brain na niya yung Bataan nuclear plant. Ano yung mga plano niya? Gusto ko madinig lahat.
Meanwhile, returning Senator J.V. Ejercito hopes that the president will highlight comprehensive plans on economic recovery and pandemic response, as well as infrastructure development and food security. Though the president's inaugural speech was inspiring, Ejercito says he hopes to hear the specifics on the direction that Marcos wants to take for the country and the details of his plan to address pressing issues. Aside from this, lawmakers will also await for the legislative agenda of the president, where Congress will be asked to prioritize and pass several proposed measures. Jorge Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Aiming to address the increasing prices of fertilizers, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. expressed his willingness to seek government-to-government conversations. Nel Maribuhok tells us the details in this report.
President Bongbong Marcos, who is also the current head of the Department of Agriculture, claimed that government-to-government deals will allow the government to obtain cheaper fertilizers. In order to address the rising cost of fertilizers, PBBM is considering the possibility of seeking G2G talks. For the country's procurement of fertilizers, the president is looking to connect with China, Indonesia, United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, and Russia. Additionally, President Marcos requested information from the DA officials on the source and cost of fertilizers, as well as the department's distribution strategy for the planting season. But according to the group Bantay Bigas, the government should first prioritize the subsidy for farmers.
Habang nakikiusap pa lang, dapat paglabas na talaga siya ng subsidy para sa fertilizers na ibibigay sa ating mga magsasaka. Para makatulong mismo sa mga magsasaka natin na talagang magtatanim na at kailangan kahit paano ay mapalaki o mapataas yung kanilang ani, talagang kailangan ng fertilizer.
The group also suggested to the government for the country to produce its own fertilizers to resolve the fertilizer problems. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Bureau of Animal Industry, or BAI, reminds the public that pigeon racing is still prohibited. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
The Bureau of Animal Industry warns the public about the continuous threat of the avian influenza or bird flu. One of their measures to avoid the spread of the virus is to temporarily prohibit pigeon racing. In pigeon racing, participants release pigeons in a distant place. Whoever come back to their owner's place won the race. But according to BAI, pigeons could possibly interact with other birds that might be a carrier of the virus and bring it to areas with poultry farms.
Nakita po kasi natin na mga ganitong komplikasyon ito, lalo na sa ilang bayan dito sa Central Luzon, na nagkaroon din naman tayo ng sampling sa Kalapate. So, mahirap sir kasi wala pong bakuna ng avian influenza.
Bae said that they are aware that pigeon race is affected by their advisory, but they are avoiding a much bigger impact on the economy if the poultry industry will be severely affected by bird flu. They don't want a major outbreak to happen similar to the effects of the African swine fever in the hog industry. Ray Pilayo, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, is not yet considering a possible extension of the voter registration for the barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections. Dante Amento tells us why.
The voter registration period for the barangay and SK elections will close on July 23, Saturday. The turnout of the voter registration is high, according to COMELEC Commissioner Amy Ferolino. Furthermore, there's not yet a compelling reason to extend registration.
Sana mas maaga silang pumunta sa ating mga registration centers. But we will see if there's a need at kung kakayanin pa na mag-extend. But as of now, we cannot announce an extension. Baka kasi kampante din sila last day na lang kasi mag-e-extend yan.
COMELEC acting spokesperson Director John Rex Laudianco added they even outnumbered the 66 million projected registered voters for the barangay and SK polls. As of July 18, 2022, there are more than 1.7 million newly registered voters. There are now about 66.2 million registered voters in the nation.
We have actually breached our target for purposes of planning. Since in the May 9 elections, we are at 65 million plus. We are expected to be at 66 million. So right now, for the regular voters, we had already breached that mark.
The Commission explained that pursuant to Republic Act 8189, within 120 days prior to an election, voter registration is prohibited. Meanwhile, after the voter registration, the poll body will begin printing manual ballots if the elections are not postponed once more.
On track kami sa preparation namin from procurement hanggang sa registration, because registration is also a part of the preparation for the barangay and SK elections.
The budget allocated by the government for the barangay and SK elections is 8.4 billion pesos. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
With just 2 days to go before a new president is set to be elected, the acting president of Sri Lanka imposes a state of emergency. Ryuji Sasaki will tell us why live. Yes, Ryuji?
Good evening, Kath. The nationwide state of emergency was declared amid growing protests demanding the resignation of Sri Lanka's acting president, Ranil Wickremesinghe. Wickremesinghe took office on Friday after his predecessor Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled abroad following mass protest over the country's economic collapse. The emergency decree gives him broad authority to make regulations in the interest of public security and order. During the state of emergency, the government can authorize detentions, take possession of property, and search premises, as well as change or suspend any law. In a statement on Twitter, Wickremesinghe addressed the peaceful protesters and assured that those who have legitimate concerns will be engaged with by the government. He also encouraged political parties to put aside differences and come together to form an all-party government and allow the country to recover from the economic crisis. Lawmakers will be voting to elect a new leader later this week. Kath?
Thank you, Ryuji Sasaki, for that live report. The Ukrainian Foreign Affairs Ministry have released a statement in regards with the war prisoners held by Russia. Ia De Vera gives us the details live. Yes, Ia?
Kath, on Monday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine released a statement accusing Russia of illegally treating Ukrainian war prisoners and use them for its own political purposes. The ministry demands the Russian Federation to treat the war prisoners humanely with strict adherence to the international humanitarian law under the Geneva Convention. Under the Ukrainian law, Kath, all foreign citizens and stateless persons fighting for the country's armed forces were considered and accepted for military service voluntarily. This makes them relevant servicemen for Ukraine's armed forces and are also to be treated as prisoners of war if captured by the enemy. Meanwhile, Russia has not responded to Ukrainian Foreign Ministry statement. On the other hand, Ukraine ensures that their war prisoners are given the rights and guarantees in accordance to the law. Kath?
Thank you, Ia de Vera, reporting live. China warns Australia to refrain from abusing China's restraint after a recent provocative incident in the South China Sea. Marvi Delfin will tell us why live. Marvi? Kath, tensions remain over China's militarization within the South China Sea, specifically with its claims of territorial rights and expansion. China's warning for Australia comes months after the clash between Chinese and Australian Canadian jets back in May during Australia's routine aerial navigation. Australian jets allegedly came too close to Chinese borders, to which China accused them of a complete provocation. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Wenbin, on the Global Times inquiry on the same issue, responded with the warning for Australia to stop endangering China's security. International law expert Professor Don Rothwell of the Australian National University explained that even though Australia has been consistent with its patterns, miscalculating the sea's borders is getting more risky as China keeps expanding its zone. Australia is now being urged to consider a US-style system of freedom of navigation operations, aka FONOPS, which will allow them to send planes and warships across territories to challenge other countries' claim of these borders. Kath, Darren Chester, former Minister of Veterans Affairs and Defense Personnel, in agreement with Rothwell, also warns for Australia to be careful in these risky situations, working closely with its allies. With a growing anxiety over China's biggest military expansion seen since the Second World War, more military interactions are already expected. Kath? Thank you, Marvi Delfin, reporting live from Australia. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I'm Kat Dumaraos, live from Bangkok, Thailand. Good evening.
Our Kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International. And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of Psalms, chapter 37, verse 25. It says, I have been young and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. And those are the reasons behind the news, July 19, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. We serve the people, we give glory to God.